Hello everyone, welcome to this tutorial by VSCode. In this tutorial, we are going to look at Visual Studio Code for web development. In the process, we will download and install Visual Studio Code on our computer. We will write HTML, CSS, and JavaScript in Visual Studio Code. It is very easy to download and install for web development. No configuration is required to use it. It can easily be used for HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Visual Studio Code has a lot of extensions we can use to improve productivity in web development. There is good news out there. The developers of Visual Studio Code are constantly updating it, and many features and extensions now come with it out of the box. Visual Studio Code is a great editor for web development. It has features and snippets out of the box, and you can add more functionality through community-created Visual Studio Code extensions. It has built-in support for editing style sheets in CSS, code in HTML, JavaScript, and many other languages. In addition, you can install an extension for greater functionality and productivity. In this video, I will show you how to download, install, and use Visual Studio Code for HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If you have installed it already on your computer, you can skip forward to look at other areas that I am going to explain in this video. To download Visual Studio Code, we will follow this link to their official website. You can also do a Google search for Visual Studio Code download to get to their official website. But for me, I will follow this link. But before that, take a minute and subscribe to this channel. By following the link in the previous slide, I am now on their official website. As at the time of recording this video, this is how their website looks. You can download Visual Studio Code by clicking on this button or by clicking on this download button. If you click here, you will see different options for different operating systems. If you click here, it will bring you to this page where you can also download it for different operating systems. I am on Windows platform and I will click on this icon here. Click on it. Now it is downloading. Great. It has finished downloading. Let's look for it in where it was downloaded to on our system. I will click here, show in folder. Great. It was downloaded to my downloads folder. Find out where yours was downloaded to on your computer. It is likely going to be on your downloads folder as well. It is an executable file, so let's double click on it to install it. I will double click on it. Great. Here you can read the Microsoft Visual Studio Code user license agreement. And if you are happy with it, click the I accept the agreement button. Now click next. On this page, you can click everything here. Select all and now click next. Now click install. Be patient, it won't take long to complete the installation. Great. Now it has finished installing. we have completed the installation process. Click on Finish. And it will launch Visual Studio Code for you because we click the Launch button. I am going to minimize Visual Studio Code for now. I will close this one. We don't need it anymore. I will close this one as well. Alright, now we have the Visual Studio Code shortcut icon on our desktop. We can launch Visual Studio Code. If it wasn't launched by default after the installation, we can launch it on our own. There are different ways we can launch Visual Studio Code. One way would be to double click on this icon here. And now we have Visual Studio Code open. I am going to minimize this for now. Another way to open Visual Studio Code is to go to the Start menu and go to All Programs and scroll down to find it in where you have installed it. It is surely going to be under letter V. And here it is, Visual Studio Code. Now double click on it to open it. Great. We now have Visual Studio Code open. I am going to minimize this one as well. Let me move this a bit. There is another way that we can open Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code works on folders. So I am going to create a folder now on my desktop and I will name it Web Dev. Web Dev. Hit enter. Now with this folder created, I can use the CMD command prompt to navigate to this folder and open it through the command prompt. To do that, type in here CMD command prompt. The folder is on my desktop, so I will navigate to my desktop, CD desktop, CD Web Dev, hit enter. Now I am inside this folder. Why inside this folder? Type in code, C-O-D-E, space, dot, and hit enter. Great. Now we have Visual Studio Code open again. In your career as a web developer with Visual Studio Code, you would be using this approach a lot. Now let me maximize this. Before we continue, there is something I would like to point out to you here. You can open multiple versions of Visual Studio Code at the same time. Here we have 3 instances of Visual Studio Code open on our computer at the same time. Now that we are inside our Web Dev folder, this is how Visual Studio Code looks the first time you launch it. The welcome page is like this. It says here show welcome page on startup. If you don't want this to be the case, you can untick it. And here it says get started with Jupyter Notebooks, get started with Python development, boost your productivity, learn the fundamentals, get started with VSCode. They are all under the walkthroughs. And here you can see recent folders. Your recent folders will be open here if you have worked on some folders before. In our case, we have not worked on any folder here. And here you have Git clone repository, open folder, open file, new file. They are all under the start heading. And here it says Visual Studio Code Editing Evolved. These are all under the Get Started page. If you want to customize the Visual Studio Code editor, here, bottom left, click on the cog icon, and here it says color theme. Click on it, and by default is dark. You can change it to something else. You can scroll down to see the different options that are available. For example, if I click on Material Theme Ocean, this is how it now looks. If you want to change it back to what it was before, click again on this icon. Now color theme. And by default it was dark. Now click dark, and it is back to what it was before. Here we have the Python extension icon. I'm not going to worry about that for now because we are dealing with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript here, not Python. And here we can click on extensions. When you click on this one, it will show you the pre-installed extensions. In my case, now it says that I have got 38 extensions installed by default. I will come to that later on. If you want to check the extensions, you can either go through here or go through View, Extensions, and it will also bring up this panel for you. This is to run and debug our code. We don't have anything to run or debug at the moment. Click on it again. This one is for code versioning. We can use this one for GitHub or Bitbucket or any versioning tool that we want to work with. This one is the search feature. This is not to search for extensions, it is to search the code file that we are working with. At the moment, we don't have any file to work with or search something in. This one is to open the editors. You can click on it to open or close it. In this tutorial, we will be working with the emmet extension for HTML, Live Server, CSS, and JavaScript extensions that will help us to generate code. But before that, let's quickly look at some other extensions you may want to work with as a web developer with Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code has loads of extensions. Some extensions are recommended based on the file you have opened or that you are working with. That is, when you install Visual Studio Code, those extensions are installed with it straight away. For example, the Live Server and the emmet extensions. Let's quickly look at some of the extensions before we start coding. Click on this icon, type here Live Server. Great. When I click on Live Server now this is the Live Server extension. It was installed by default. If I want to uninstall it, I will click uninstall. In this case, I don't want to uninstall it, I need it, so I will leave it as it is. It says this extension is enabled globally. It is a popular extension and it has more than 25 million downloads, so which means a lot of people are using it. And here it says launch a development local server with live reload feature for static and dynamic pages. We will be using it in this tutorial, and if you scroll down a bit, it gives you more information about Live Server. Another extension you may want to look at is emmet. Type here emmet and some emmet related extensions will come up. Click on this. Great. Now it shows mid-trail emmet. And here it says emmet for HTML, CSS, JSS. It's a built-in feature for Visual Studio Code. So we use emmet for HTML code and CSS. Another extension you may want to look at is Bootstrap. Click on it, and here it shows that it was installed by default. Bootstrap 4, Font Awesome 4, and so on. So you can also scroll down to read more about it. Another extension is the ES6 JavaScript. And here are some results for the ES6 JavaScript. And click on this top one here. JavaScript ES6 code snippet. It is a popular extension used by developers with Visual Studio Code. You can install it if it wasn't installed by default. In my case, it wasn't installed, so I can click install. Great. Now the JavaScript ES6 code snippet has been installed. If I want to uninstall it, I'll just click here, uninstall. Again, it has been uninstalled, and now it says install. That is, if I want to install it, I can install it. Another extension to look at is the Docker extension. Docker, click on the results. Here we have here Docker by Microsoft. It says here makes it easy to create, manage, and debug containerized applications. It is a popular extension. It's been downloaded more than 17 million times, which means a lot of developers are using Docker. Another extension is the Code Runner. Code Runner is another popular extension. It is installed with Visual Studio Code by default. This extension is enabled globally. You can scroll down to read more about it. It can be used with different programming languages. The emmet extension is installed by default. When you install any recent version of Visual Studio Code, emmet will be installed by default. Another great extension is VSCode Essentials. Click on it. This is the VSCode Essentials. It says turn VSCode into a supercharged IDE. One thing to note here is that the VSCode Essentials is an extension pack. It has 39 other extensions as at the time of doing this video. Code Runner is there, IntelliCode, GitLens is there, and when you scroll down you see some other extensions that are part of these VSCode Essentials extensions. Another popular extension is the React Essentials. Click on this one here. It says ES7 React Redux React Native Snippets. It is a very popular extension. It has been downloaded more than 6 million times, and you can install it. The Student Pack extension is another popular extension. Student Pack. The Student Pack extension is another great extension. Click on it here. The Student Pack. The Student Pack extension has so many other extensions. As at the time of doing this video, it has 82 extensions. We have Django there, HTML, CSS support, Python, Pylons. You can scroll down to see more about it. CSS, C++, color highlight, and so on. By installing the Student Pack extension, many other extensions will be available for you to install. You can install the Student Pack extension, and many other extensions come with it. You can also install the full JavaScript complete pack. The full JavaScript complete pack is another great extension to have. It is an extension packed with many other extensions. As at the time of doing this video, it has about 103 extensions. You can scroll down here to see all the extensions that come with it. To install it, just click here, install. HTML CSS support. The HTML CSS support extension by default comes with Visual Studio Code. If you download and install any recent version of Visual Studio Code, it will come with HTML CSS support. By default, this extension is included with recent versions of Visual Studio Code. This extension is enabled globally. If you want to uninstall it, you can uninstall it. Visual Studio Code CSS IntelliSense for HTML. We will use it in the course of this tutorial. One last one I'm going to point out here to you is the VSCode CSS snippet. VSCode CSS snippets. Here you can click on it. The VSCode CSS snippet is another great CSS tool to have. CSS snippet for fast prototyping. You can scroll down here to read about the description for the VSCode CSS snippet. So there are loads of extensions with Visual Studio Code. I'm going to close this one and I will open the editor. Visual Studio Code has a lot of extensions that are IntelliSense compliant. That is, they provide you with auto-suggestion and code completion features. In this part of the tutorial, I will specifically be looking at how to work with live server, emmet and HTML tags, JavaScript, CSS, code generators. Now that we are inside our web dev folder, let's create our first HTML page. Click on this icon and I will give it a name, index.html. Hit enter. Great, now we have our index.html page. This works a lot with emmet. So type in here apostrophe. Now with the apostrophe typed in here, we have this emmet abbreviation. It shows now that we are going to get this HTML block of code. Hit enter. Great. This is possible as a result of the emmet extension. Now let's give it a title. I will call it Introduction to VS Code, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That is the title of our page, Introduction to VS Code, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Don't worry about all these tags for now if you don't understand them. I will do some other videos for HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I will explain all these to you in those videos. Now, in the body section of our HTML page, I'm going to enter H1. Type in here, hello world. Save it. Normally, you would need a web browser to view your web page. But in this case, we are going to use the live server extension to view our HTML page. To do that, right-click on the name of the file here, index.html. Right-click on it. Open with live server. Great. Now live server is running and our HTML page is displayed. It says hello world. And here it says Introduction to VS Code, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Let me reduce the width of the page so that both the HTML page and the code in Visual Studio Code will fit on the same screen. And for this one, I will reduce it. Okay, this title here is what we have here, and this H1 message hello world is what we have here. We are able to view it now with the aid of the live server extension. Let's move this one this way a bit. With the aid of the emmet extension, I can add some more HTML code to it. For example, DL and DD. If I say here DL, DD, multiply by 4, DL, right angle bracket DD, asterisk 4, I hit enter, I'll get this. If I say here home, products, as I am typing it up here, it is displaying straight on the live server. Services, contact us. Everything is displaying on the index.html page on the live server just as we type it here in our code. That is one of the benefits of using the live server extension. I am going to comment this one out now. With Visual Studio Code, you can comment a block of line out. This is an HTML page. Now I have selected these lines of code. I will press Ctrl plus the / key, and everything is now turned to a comment. If I want to delete it, that is easy, just delete it. For me to show the code and just comment the code out, I can do undo, undo, undo. Now I will leave this one as a comment so that you can use it easily. Now I have turned that to a comment. Before I go further with the HTML part of it, let's look at the CSS part. Now we have a default background color, which is white. Let's change the background color of this page. We will use CSS to do that. Inside our web dev folder, let's create another file. Click here. I'll call it app.css. Hit enter. Great. Now this is our CSS file. Let's change the background color for the page. That will be the body. Body. Background. You see, by default, I am now getting this CSS syntax. That is made possible by the extensions that come with Visual Studio Code. I'll click background color, and here I have the color names options. I'll click here aqua and save it. Now for this background color to be applied to this index.html page, I would need to link the two pages together. That is easy to do. To do that, open the index.html page, and here link rel style sheet href. What's the name of our CSS file? App.css. App. Dot. So Visual Studio Code recognizes it straight away. Now click on it and save it. Now you can see the color for the background has changed to aqua on the live server. I will come back to this later, but for now let's look at JavaScript. Now let's create a JavaScript file inside our web dev folder. Click on the new file icon here. Let's give it a name, myapp.js. Hit enter. Now we have our JavaScript file here. Let's enter some JavaScript code and see how IntelliSense will help us to generate some JavaScript code. Now I'm going to write a JavaScript code to show today's date. I will create a variable here, let date equals new date. Now IntelliSense is giving me hints for some JavaScript code. Date, see here console.log, log what? This variable date. Save it. This is a JavaScript code. For us to preview our JavaScript code in Visual Studio Code, right click the file, and here it says run code. You can do it this way, or you right click on the name of the file, my app.js, right click on it, and it will show you here run code. Click on run code. Great. Here it shows the date. This is today's date, and look at the format. I am going to change that in a minute, but if you want to stop running code, right here inside the output panel, right click on it, stop run code, and to clear it, also right here inside the output panel, right click on it, clear output. If you want to close the output completely, let me move this a bit, you click on this one to close panel. Okay, now for that date to show in a better format, I can add something to this. That will be date dot to ISO string. The IntelliSense is now giving me options. Click on this one. Dot slice 0,10 and semicolon. I just want to format the date so that it will be displayed in a different format. Now let's run it again. Right click here, run code. Exactly, this is how the date is now displaying. Let me stop it, stop running code, clear output. We can add some text to it. Concatenate it there. Today's date is. Let's run it again. Run code. Exactly, it shows today's date. Yours may be different depending on when you are doing this tutorial. Stop running code. Clear output. Close panel. Let's move this back. At the moment, we are using the console log to view our JavaScript date. I am going to display this date on the index.html page. To do that, I'll change this one to a comment. Now I will say document.write. Today is date. Now I say document.write. Today is date. So for us to see it here in our document, we need to link these two pages together. That is the JavaScript file and the HTML file. To do that, let's go back to our index.html. Now let's link both our JavaScript file and index.html file together. Okay. Script src. I am able to see all these auto suggestions because of the built-in JavaScript code snippet that Visual Studio Code comes with. Click this. And what's the name of our file? My app. Yes, Visual Studio Code now recognizes it. Click on it. Close this and save it. Refresh this. Great. Now we have the date displaying on our index.html page. Normally, when you are developing a web application, you would want to create folders that store respective files. For example, a JS folder will hold all your JavaScript files, while a CSS folder will hold all your CSS files. But for now, we are just leaving all of them inside the same web dev folder. Now, the app.css file, the myapp.js file, and the index.html file are linked together and they are working together. Let's go back to the JavaScript file. We may just want to use this one as an alert. For example, if I see here now alert, date, save it, and here you see we are already getting the alert message. So you can also do this if you want to alert something on your page. I am going to turn this to a comment and uncomment this. And now let's create a function. So now I'm going to write a function here that says hello. A function to say hello. I'll be function say hello, and I will say console.log hello world. Save it. Now call the function, call the say hello function. Say hello. Now I can see it right here straight away. The IntelliSense is making it possible for me now to see my function here and see other JavaScript related code inside Visual Studio Code. This is what I need for now. Semicolon, save it. I am going to comment this one out for now. I don't want it to display. So I'll comment it out, save it. Now let's run this code. Right click on the page, run code. Exactly, says here hello world. Now we have a function in JavaScript and we can read it from the console log. So the output is here hello world. Stop code run. Clear output. We can close this one. I'm going to write another function and display something to you again. This one say here write another function in JavaScript with VSCode. Write another function in JavaScript with VSCode. We'll say here function add norms A command B command C. We are going to add three numbers together. Here I'll create a variable let total equals A plus B plus C, semicolon, and return total. So let's call this function. Call the add norms function. I'll say console.log add. I am able to use this auto suggest and highlighters now as a result of the built-in extensions in Visual Studio Code and the IntelliSense. Add norms, and I'll say 23, 56, 91, semicolon. Save it. Now I'm going to run just this part of the code. Select it, right click on the page, run code. Exactly, now I have 170. Stop run code, clear output. So in this case, there is more code on the page, but I am not running the rest part of the code. I'm just running this function. This is a way you can also test or debug your code. That is a different topic entirely, which I will come to another time. Now we can modify this and add some text. The total is, save it. Now let's run it once again. Select this function that we want to run, right click the name of the file, my app.js, run code. Exactly, the total is 170. This part of the tutorial was to demonstrate to you how to use JavaScript with Visual Studio Code and exploit the benefits of the IntelliSense and auto suggest for JavaScript code in Visual Studio Code. Now, let's go back to our HTML page, index.html. We'll close this. There is a lot more that we can do with the emmet extension for HTML and CSS. Here we can say UL, right angle bracket, LI, asterisk, 5, and hit enter. Now we have 5 listed items inside our unordered list. Don't worry about these HTML tags for now. So now we have 5 of them here. We can add some items. Once again, home, products, services, contact us. As we type here, it is appearing here straight away. That is one of the benefits of using the Live Server extension in Visual Studio Code, and it comes by default. We did not install it, but if it was not installed in yours, I have showed you already how to install it. Jobs, this here straight away. So I will undo it. I've changed that now to a comment. We can also say here UL, right angle bracket, LI, asterisk, 10 dot items. So emmet abbreviation shows here what we will get. We are going to get 10 listed items, and if I hit enter, that is exactly what we get. So we have here 10, and we've not added anything into it. We say here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So everything is displaying here as we enter it here. We do it and comment it out in case you want to use it. I can do something similar here. Say DL, right angle bracket, DD, asterisk 4, right angle bracket, A, dot. Hit enter. Because it's a DD, it's not a listed item, so you won't see those dots. DL stands for definition list, while DD stands for definition description. Don't worry about that for now, but they are all HTML tags. Here we could put some links, and here these are classes. We could give them names. Here we could enter some text. For example, again, if I say USA, Germany, Nigeria, China, as we are typing it in here, it is displaying on our page. Live Server is making that possible. And they are links because we add here a href. Turn that to a comment again. You can use the code here to generate that. We can also do something for both HTML and CSS here. See here, do something with CSS and HTML. Turn it to a comment. Do something with CSS and HTML. Okay, in this case I'll say UL, LI, asterisk 4, right angle bracket, A, dot. Hit enter. So now we have listed items for, let's quickly add something here, index.html. This could have been a class, just say HM. Now say home, products.html, class PD, products. We can collapse this one for now. Now we see everything. Services.html, SVC, services. Contact.html, CTU, contact us. These are just HTML file names. They could have been other extensions, not just HTML, could have been something else. So now we have everything displayed here. It is a block level display. We can change it to an inline level display with our CSS. To do that, now let's go to our CSS page. Here we can say a link. So the CSS syntax is being highlighted here as a result of the emmet abbreviation. So we are able to use this because of the emmet extension that is installed in Visual Studio Code. So don't worry about all these if you do not understand them yet. Say here text decoration, none. Save it. Now you see all the underlines are all gone. So these links are not underlined anymore. Let's do something else to it. For a comment in CSS, we do it a bit differently from that of the HTML. I'll say here // then put 2 asterisks in between. Change it to inline display. That will now be li display. By default is block. Now we want to change it to inline. Now you can see everything is displayed this way, not in the block format anymore. We can increase the spaces between them, and to do that you can see here margin, and here I'm getting some suggestions of what is possible with CSS, and this is possible as a result of the emmet extension tool. I'll say here margin right 25 pixels. Hit enter, and now you see the gap between them is wider than before. I am going to change this one to a comment because we can do this one differently. We can say MR25. You see, MR25, it knows that we are talking about margin right, 25 pixels. Hit enter, and it's exactly the same thing. For margin bottom, you could say MB, MT for margin top, and so on. If we were to add width to it, we could say here W. So width is coming up straight away. 45. If we add P to it, it knows that we are talking about width 45%. But be careful here because percent and pixel, they both start with letter P. However, it is not recognizing pixel because by default it is set to pixel. So it is understandable why it changes P to %, because if you don't add P, by default we will have pixels. So we hit enter here. There's nothing really visible here because we didn't really specify that in our HTML page. But this is how you would add it to your CSS page. I will comment this one out. So this is how you use CSS and HTML in Visual Studio Code with the emmet extension. We have also seen here how to use JavaScript in Visual Studio Code with HTML and with the code highlighter. There are so many other things you can do with emmet. For example, if I say here DL, dd dot item asterisk 4 right angle bracket a dot, this is what the emmet abbreviation we produce. I will get this. But here, if I say dl right angle bracket dd dot item dash $sign asterisk 5 right angle bracket a, this is what I will get. I hit enter. You can see here this one has got numbers added to it. That'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Here item has a number added to it, while here item doesn't have a number added to it. We can add something here, say, let me do that, no number, just copy them there, no number, no number, no number. We can do something else, say dl dd dot link hyphen $symbol asterisk 4. This is what I will get. Hit enter. Now it's class link 1, link 2, link 3, link 4. I'll leave this as a comment so that you can see the code. We can do more than that with emmet. dl right angle bracket dd dot link hyphen $sign, $3 asterisk 4 dot. Hit enter, and now you can see link has 001, 002, 003, 004 added to it. So with this one, we are able to add numbers. Let me just copy this one, then comment it out. That is the code for it. Now paste it right below it. So this piece of code gives you this, and that is possible with the help of the emmet extension. HTML and CSS are very useful for page layout. Web designers use them a lot. We can use emmet in that regard too. Here I will say emmet for page layout. In this case, we can write our code like this: header dot site header right angle bracket h1 plus nav right angle bracket ul right angle bracket li asterisk 5a. So the emmet abbreviation now with this, we will get this HTML code. So I will hit enter, and this is what we have. We have the header class site header. Inside it, we have our h1. See here, welcome to Zebra Code. And here we have the nav section. Inside the nav, we have a UL with a listed items. You can see here VSCode, CSS, HTML, JavaScript. See here more. So everything is being displayed this way. The reason it's being displayed this way is because our CSS, we said here a link. So this is also automatically being applied to this. And it's displayed now in our page. just as we type it. That is as a result of the live server that we are using. One last thing I will do here, see here, something a bit more complex. Control / to change it to a comment. And let's do something a bit more complex. Open and close the bracket, the header dot site hyphen header, right angle bracket h1 plus nav, right angle bracket ul, right angle bracket li, asterisk 4, right angle bracket a, plus open and close the bracket again, div dot site hyphen body, right angle bracket div dot main plus aside dot sidebar plus, let me maximize this one so that you see everything. Okay, again, plus open and close the bracket, footer dot site hyphen footer, and you can see everything here being displayed by the emmet abbreviation. That's what we are going to get. Right angle bracket P, and we can hit enter. So this is the code we get with that. Let me quickly copy this one for now and undo it to bring back the code, turn it to a comment. Now paste it there. Right, so you can see the full code that we wrote in emmet to get this. Now I'm going to reduce the size of this page so that we can see the live server page again. Great. Now we have both the live server page and the HTML page. So if we enter something here now, say programming is being displayed here. Say here now C++, Java, Python, MySQL. So now they are being displayed there. Here, this is the main area of the page. Here we type in left bar, and I have left bar here. Here, this is the footer area. I will say % copy semicolon. That's for copyright. Copyright 2022, and it shows here copyright 2022. So normally I would go on to use CSS to style this page, but I am not going to do that in this tutorial. I am going to stop here, and this was just to explain to you how to use some extensions with CSS, HTML, and JavaScript in Visual Studio Code. I will do some videos specifically for CSS, JavaScript, and HTML next time. I hope you learned something from this video. Please remember to subscribe to this channel if you have not subscribed. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.